Morning mist hangs over Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, softening concrete and seawalls. The camera feels close as Evelyn Carter walks with quiet purpose, sea bag balanced and shoulders loose. She is a petty officer first class, a CQD and Combatives instructor with Naval Special Warfare training detachment on routine staff movement. She has already checked in at the quarterdeck and BEQ office. Temporary housing orders confirmed on her phone. She turns into the temporary staff berthing adjacent to the candidate area, where floors shine and fluorescent light makes every breath larger. The hallway is tight, metal racks lining walls like rails. 4 candidates in Navy physical training gear step forward and block the doorway before she can set her bag down. Shoulders square, eyes narrow. The space compresses until air tastes like stainless steel. They read her as an outsider, even as the orders say otherwise. And a line begins to tremble. We will tell this moment with accuracy and respect for operational security, and with the calm of a training floor. Discipline over bravado, process over volume, professionalism over noise. The promise is simple. Control is strength. And what happens next will prove why a steady voice carries the farthest. Fluorescent light hums over a narrow berthing corridor where metal racks press close and paint smells faintly clean. Soft sole boots tap the deck and echoes stack into a steady metronome. Evelyn Carter moves at a measured pace with shoulders relaxed and eyes scanning left and right. She is a petty officer first class and a CQD and Combatives instructor with Naval Special Warfare training detachment. Her check-in at the quarterdeck and the BEQ office is complete, and her temporary housing orders sit open on her phone. She turns into temporary staff berthing adjacent to the candidate area and confirms the number on the hatch. Breath stays slow as she notes fire extinguishers, egress points, and the tight clearance between racks. The air feels dry, and the corridor seems to funnel sound toward the far hatch. 4 sailors in Navy physical training gear shift into view with territorial energy that tightens the space. Cole Tanner, a petty officer, third class, steps into her path while Ryan Brooks slides to her flank, and Derek Vaughn shades the exit, and Noah Clark lingers near the racks. Evelyn keeps Navy courtesy and plain language and identifies by rank and last name and assignment. She offers to present the orders again and keeps her hands visible with the phone angled for a clean read. Cole dismisses the screen without reading, and Ryan lets a thin laugh ride the fluorescent buzz. Derek eases his heels into place at the doorway while Noah looks between faces and the exit and says nothing. Distance closes by inches and shoulders square and elbows drift away from ribs. No one raises a voice, and the corridor still grows smaller with every micro change in stance and breath. Evelyn does not flash authority and does not posture and does not threaten. She stays on the process she already followed and lets her bearing carry the weight. The sense lands that the group has decided she does not belong, even as the orders confirm she is in the right space. The hallway feels like it is shrinking around a choice they are moments from making. She grew up in a small western town where morning started before sunrise and the air smelled like sage after a light rain. Routine was simple and steady, and chores taught timing better than any clock. The day found shape in quiet effort and early light. Her father had served as a Navy hospital corpsman and carried himself with calm, square shoulders, and soft eyes. He taught basic self-protection as part of personal responsibility. The way you learn to check door locks and watch weather, the lesson was to keep space, keep breath, and keep judgment. Teenage years found her on borrowed mats at a strip mall gym with scuffed walls and tape on the seams. Brazilian jiu-jitsu caught her attention because leverage spoke louder than size. Weekends were small tournaments, long waits, short matches, and a notebook full of tiny corrections. She learned to breathe when grips tightened and to count heartbeats instead of worrying about the scoreboard. Coaches talked about frames, base, and angles, and she let the words settle in her bones. The rhythm of drilling turned nerves into patience. Enlistment followed with a clear intention to serve inside a demanding community. She entered the United States Navy on the Naval Special Warfare support track, not as a SEAL or SWCC, but as a trusted professional who understood high standards. She learned the rhythms of the command and earned quiet confidence. Years of repetition and credibility opened a door to instruction. At the Naval Special Warfare Training Detachment, she developed as a CQD and Combatives instructor, working alongside other professionals who valued precision. The work required patience, clear language, and a steady presence. Her curriculum covered joint locks, defensive tactics, weapons retention, and de-escalation in tight spaces like ship compartments and narrow hallways. She focused on structure and timing so that small adjustments created large results. Students learned how to win balance before trying to win speed. Her instructor philosophy was simple: control over force, precision over volume, walk away when possible, stabilize when necessary, and act only within the line that keeps people safe. That approach shaped how she moved in any room. She read distance before words, tracked hands before voices, and measured breath against the size of a corridor. Calm did not mean soft. Calm meant ready, which is why the hallway at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado did not steal her footing when it narrowed around her. She had been training for this without drama for years. She would hold still until restraint risked injury. Then she would act with enough control to stop harm and no more. Evelyn Carter holds her phone with temporary housing orders open, the check-in at the quarterdeck and the BEQ office already complete. She turns into the temporary staff berthing adjacent to the candidate area, assigned there because of overflow and not by mistake. Process, location, and authority line up without a gap. Fluorescent light flattens color in the narrow corridor and makes metal racks look sharper than they are. Soft sole boots whisper on the deck while her breathing stays measured and even. She centers her bag near the bulkhead and confirms hatch numbers with a steady glance. 4 sailors in Navy physical training gear let the air change before anyone speaks. Cole Tanner steps into her path and dismisses the screen without reading it. Ryan Brooks edges closer with a thin laugh, while Derek Vaughn shifts to cover the doorway. Noah Clark hangs back near the racks, with hands loose and eyes moving between faces and the exit. Evelyn keeps Navy courtesy and offers her rank, last name, and assignment in plain language. She raises the phone again so the orders can be read cleanly if anyone cares to look. The corridor tightens by inches as shoulders square and elbows float from ribs. This stops being about documents and becomes a question of territory inside a small space. Policies sit ignored in the glow while a choice gathers at the threshold. Evelyn does not posture or threaten, and she does not reach for borrowed authority. She relies on the steps she followed and on the bearing that steady work builds. The hallway feels smaller, and a decision pushes the room toward a line that should not be crossed. The berthing corridor holds a hard quiet that hums with light and recirculated air. Metal racks crowd both sides, and the deck feels narrow beneath soft sole boots. Evelyn Carter sets her sea bag near the bulkhead and keeps her phone angled down. Cole Tanner closes distance with a quick step that erases space before intent catches up. His hand locks on her shoulder and drives her into the wall. Concrete answers with a flat vibration through her back. A second hand climbs to her neck and clamps in a way that steals air rather than posture. The grip is not a warning. It is control taken without right. Ryan Brooks lets out a short laugh that dies as fast as it leaves him. Derek Vaughn shifts wider until the doorway disappears behind his shoulders. Noah Clark freezes against the racks with both hands loose and empty. Evelyn keeps her head level and her breath measured even as airflow tightens. She tracks angles the way she tracks time on a drill. Chin tucked, feet set, spine long against the wall. The corridor turns hotter by a few degrees and the light seems louder. No rank courtesy remains and no process is being followed. This is not confusion anymore. She holds to a professional threshold that was taught and retaught on mats and in classrooms. Self-defense begins when restraint risks injury, not when pride is bruised. She is not there yet. Cole squeezes harder and pushes upward into the soft tissue that should never take pressure. Breath comes shallow and slow, then stutters. Fingers at the edge of her jaw begin to shake. Ryan eases closer until she can see the seam of his shirt. Derek plants his feet and spreads his weight like a door bar. Noah looks at the floor, then the exit, then the floor again. Evelyn measures distance to the wrist bone on her throat and how far his elbow sits from his ribs. She feels the plane of the deck under both heels. She counts a beat that belongs to her. The unit standard for conduct in close quarters is not a mystery. What is happening meets the plain meaning of assault in a Navy space. The decision that follows is not a debate. Cole's grip tightens one notch more and her airway pinches into a narrow straw. The line she has held reaches its end. Continued restraint would invite injury. She lets the breath she has ride out through her nose and fixes her eyes on his wrist. The instant arrives clean and undeniable. She decides to act. She moves the instant the threshold is crossed and lets breath guide the first step. A hand wedge slides between Cole Tanner's forearm and her neck to open a small airway. The motion is tight, simple, and meant only to buy time. Her other hand captures his wrist with the heel of her palm set against the joint. She rotates through the wrist with controlled pressure that breaks the grip without tearing tissue. Elbow stays close, so leverage does the work instead of muscle. A short palm strike lands under the jaw to stun and shift his balance. Her feet stay under her hips, so the strike does not pull her forward. Center of gravity remains hers. She follows with a controlled knee to the solar plexus to take his air and stop the forward drive. The knee is compact and aligned, so the force goes into the target and then ends. No extra motion and no chase. Head stays up and base stays wide as she settles back to neutral. Breathing returns to a steady tempo she has drilled for years. The goal is control, not punishment. No weapon is drawn in the berthing corridor. There is no baton, no spray, and no show of force beyond what stops the immediate risk. She acts as a CQD and Combatives instructor inside a cramped Navy space. Ryan Brooks sits in her peripheral vision, weight shifting but feet unsure. Derek Vaughn is a blur at the doorway where shoulders fill the hatch. Noah Clark remains outside the threat cone with open hands and wide eyes. Cole folds to the deck with breath chopped into short pulls. The hallway goes quiet except for the hum of fluorescent light and the tap of recirculated air. Evelyn Carter is already scanning for the next movement with discipline and restraint. Derek Vaughn surges the instant Cole Tanner folds to the deck. Size and speed carry him down the narrow berthing corridor, where metal racks pinch the lane and footing is thin. Adrenaline turns his shoulders into a battering ram. Evelyn Carter cuts the angle with a small pivot that keeps her spine stacked and her hips under her. She hooks inside his lead leg with a quiet catch that steals his base. Balance does the rest, and his momentum skates past center. He hits the deck hard with a flat thud that rattles the frame of the nearest rack. She does not chase the fall, and instead resets her feet, shoulder width on the non-skid. Breath stays even and eyes move before hands move. The corridor feels tighter now, full of recirculated air and the hum of fluorescent light. Tangled bedding on a lower rack threatens to snag an ankle if she backs up without looking. She notes the egress behind her and the bulkhead to her left. Ryan Brooks hangs in the middle distance with weight forward, but courage half-measured. Hesitation shows in the way his hands float at midline and his heels stutter on the deck. That pause is an open door. Evelyn steps into it with calm timing and captures his wrist with a clean 2-on-1. She rotates the hand to a safe angle and feeds the arm into a standing armbar that bends elbow and shoulder together. Pressure is controlled and directional. Ryan drops to one knee as the joint line speaks its quiet language. She delivers a short, firm command without heat and waits for the muscles to release. The moment compliance arrives, she backs the pressure away and leaves him breathing but contained. Noah Clark stays by the racks with both palms visible and fingers splayed in a signal that needs no words. He is not a threat, and she treats him that way. His eyes track her movements with a mix of relief and regret. There is no baton in her hands and no spray on her belt in this space. No weapon appears at any time because the threat is being managed inside arm's length. Control over punishment remains the rule. She scans for secondary hazards that turn small mistakes into injuries. sharp corners on ladder rungs, a loose footlocker hinge, a duffel half unzipped near the hatch. The floor is clear enough to move if she keeps her steps short and deliberate. Derek tries to push up on one elbow and finds his balance still gone. She shifts her stance to keep him in view without crowding him. The goal is to stop motion, not to add damage. Ryan breathes hard with one knee planted and the other foot flat, eyes steady on the deck. She checks the line of his shoulder for signs of strain and makes a small adjustment to release any pinch. He stays where he is because the position makes sense to his body. Cole Tanner's breath now comes in shorter pulls as air returns to his lungs. She notes the color coming back to his face and the way his hands rest near his chest. He is no longer driving the event. Evelyn keeps the corridor quiet with presence rather than volume. Navy courtesy stays intact in the way she addresses movement and posture. Her voice is used for timing and clarity rather than challenge. The atmosphere cools by degrees as momentum leaves the group and settles into the deck. Metal frames stop ringing and the hum of the light takes back the room. Noah shifts a half step away from the racks and holds that line. She maintains a stable base and a steady breath while her eyes run a loop through doorways and hands. The loop returns to egress, hazards, and faces, then repeats with the same cadence. Nothing is left to chance inside tight spaces. Derek lies stunned and blinking. Ryan is contained and breathing hard. Noah stands off to the side with open hands, and Cole recovers air. Movement is stilled without drama and without show. The berthing corridor feels held together by simple competence. Evelyn centers in the middle of it all, with calm that belongs to work done for years. She does not announce a victory, and she does not seek a reaction. Her next thought is about stabilizing the space until a senior leader arrives. The corridor holds a careful quiet when the hatch swings open, and a senior enlisted leader steps in with steady eyes. Senior Chief Marcus Lee, pay grade E8, takes a practice scan that counts 4 sailors in various states, and Petty Officer First Class Evelyn Carter, standing balanced and alert. He confirms immediate safety with simple, direct checks that need no raised voice. Medical needs take priority as he looks for shallow breathing, unfocused eyes, and signs of impact before anything else proceeds. His questions are calm and professional as he asks for identification by rank, last name, and assignment. Evelyn responds with clear bearing and presents her phone with temporary housing orders, adding that she checked in at the quarterdeck and the BEQ office before entering the temporary staff berthing adjacent to the candidate area. Senior Chief Lee reads enough to understand that paperwork, location, and process match. He notes the ignored courtesy and the broken sequence that brought them to this narrow space and sets his jaw with quiet certainty. He keys his radio and requests master at arms base security and medical support with short, clear traffic. He then orders everyone to hold position until security arrives, while keeping the tone firm, specific, and lawful, so no one mistakes what is expected. Small safety details follow as he clears the walkway of stray bags, checks for sharp edges on ladder rungs, and confirms that no one is in immediate distress. He instructs hands to stay visible and bodies to remain still so the space stays controlled and safe. There is no legal speech. Only the plain recognition that assault and disrespect toward a petty officer have occurred and will be handled through proper channels. Authority returns to the corridor through competence and sequence rather than volume. He turns back to Evelyn with the same measured courtesy and asks if she requires medical attention. The space is stabilized, the hum of fluorescent light steady again, and the next step is in motion while they wait for security to take formal control. Master at Arms Base Security arrives at the berthing corridor with medical personnel in tow. The team steps through the hatch, and the tone shifts to steady and procedural. The air feels cooler when order takes the lead. Security separates the sailors with clear hand signals and quiet direction. Positions are noted. Names and ranks are confirmed, and initial identity information is recorded without full interviews. Radios pass short traffic that sounds like stand by, copy, and hold position. Medical staff check Derek Vaughn for impact and balance, then move to Cole Tanner to assess breathing and tenderness along the ribs. A corpsman offers Evelyn Carter a medical assessment while watching orientation, skin color, and speech. She remains composed and answers calmly. The walkway is cleared of loose bags to prevent trips and preserve the scene. Items on racks are left untouched, and hands are kept visible to avoid contaminating potential evidence. A small cordon keeps the corridor from crowding. Proper United States Navy terms guide the work, so roles stay clear and sequence stays correct for a contained on-base incident. Privacy and OPSEC are respected, with names handled professionally and no public spectacle. The corridor feels like a room inside a checklist. Markers note where people stood and where contact likely occurred. Safety is confirmed. Respirations are steady, and no one appears in acute distress. Personnel hold their places while they wait for the next procedural step, and Evelyn remains cooperative, steady, and ready to follow instruction. The scene is stabilized and the process moves where it should. Command reviews statements, medical notes, and the immediate reports from Master-at-Arms and medical staff. The path leads to non-judicial punishment through Captain's Mast. Cole, Tanner, and Derek Vaughn stand before the commanding officer with none of the corridor bravado. The finding results in a reduction in rate from Petty Officer 3rd Class E4 to Seaman E3. They receive 45 days of restriction and 45 days of extra duty, consistent with limits at this level. Both sailors are reassigned away from Naval Special Warfare training. They are sent to a non-NSW shore billet at a base service or support command where the work is steady and far from the candidate pipeline. The message is clear without being cruel. Ryan Brooks faces a different outcome because he did not initiate assault. He receives formal counseling and mandatory professional conduct training for contributing to a hostile environment. The record notes expectations for conduct in shared spaces and the duty to de-escalate. Noah Clark provides a written statement that helps clarify sequence and distance. He completes leadership training focused on early intervention because silence under pressure failed his team. The instruction aims to prepare him to speak sooner next time. In some circumstances, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service may be notified when injuries are severe or evidence is complex. In this case, facts and injuries support handling at Captain's Mast without further escalation. The process remains firm and proportional. The language throughout is the language of the United States Navy. Ranks, billets, and actions are recorded with care, so the lesson is precise. Everyone is treated with basic dignity, while accountability stays front and center. The result is not a spectacle. It is a correction that moves fast enough to matter and measured enough to teach. The sailors feel the weight of their choices without being broken by them. Evelyn Carter returns to work with the same quiet professionalism that carried her through the corridor. She checks mats, sets drills, and keeps the tone calm and exact. Respect follows the work, and the room understands why. On the quiet side of Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, the instructor quarters settle into early light. Evelyn Carter returns to a tidy room, then laces up for the mats with the same calm she brings to every brief. Morning starts at 5:30 a.m. in the training bay at Naval Special Warfare Training Detachment. She checks joint lock safety on partners, confirms taps, and reviews angles so elbows and shoulders stay protected. Weapons retention drills run with safe training aids, not live weapons. She moves station to station with clear cues, steady eye contact, and a pace that keeps breathing even. Rumors travel, and students stand a little straighter when she steps onto the deck. She never mentions the corridor and keeps class focused on structure, timing, and respect for process. Respect follows the work, not the volume, and professionalism sets the tone for everyone on the mats each day. Late afternoon settles outside the Naval Special Warfare Training Detachment as the sun slips low and the pavement cools. Noah Clark approaches with careful steps and shoulders tight, admitting he froze when the corridor turned hostile and failed to intervene. The base feels quieter when he says it out loud and waits. Evelyn Carter listens with a steady posture and a humane patience that leaves room for breath. She reminds him that leadership starts before things spiral and that another chance will come to choose action. Noah leaves a little more grounded, and she returns to work with the same quiet professionalism that shaped this entire story. This story closes in a quiet room, where discipline, respect, and humility do the real work. Inside Naval Special Warfare culture, professionalism protects people in tight spaces and keeps tempers from writing the plan. Real strength speaks softly and holds the line without noise. If you have a moment when you were misjudged or chose to step up, share it with privacy in mind and no unit details. Like and subscribe to support lessons that honor service members and accurate United States Navy terminology. Tell us what story you want next, and leave today with steady hope for tomorrow's work.